Ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to join the army and to serve my country to the best of my abilities.
You can't help who you love, but when you do get into a relationship with someone in the Defence Force, you do take on their life, and it's very difficult to get used to that in the first 6, 12, 12 months, 2 years of the relationship, of the constantly being away, of not being able to contact you, of being away inside Australia, but you're still not allowed to come home on weekends. And, it's very hard because for them, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force still comes first. And, yes, you're important, but, you're an important other aspect of their life. Their life is the military. And it's very hard to learn that, not that you're second best, but that they're trying to balance and manage that. And so you do sign on. You do, you end up taking on sort of like the group mentality that they do too, I think. So I went to the base with Gary before he left, actually the day he was leaving. Didn't say goodbye to him, said I'll see you later. And then I proceeded to walk out of the area where he was, back to the car, and started crying but refused to show him that, so I didn't turn back to look at him whatsoever. I just kept walking. Got back into the car and cried for about 10 minutes. Pulled myself together enough where I was ready to drive, and then the bus came to collect them all and take them all to the airport. And as soon as I saw that bus, I sat there and cried for the next 10 minutes before I was able to pull myself together to be safe to drive home.
The risks worried me, but the risks to my brothers in my platoon, they worried me more. So I would go there to protect them to the best I could.
I wasn't worried so much that he would be unsafe. I was just more scared of being on my own for such a long period of time, and not being in a position where I could contact him if I wanted to. Being 100% reliant on whenever and however they were able to contact us. And it was more the fear of the unknown and being on my own, and having to do everything on my own for an extended period. And that was the initial fear. You can't say a lot, and the conversations are very much one-sided. It's more about what I'm doing, how life is going at home, how things are going at home, how the family is, how, the friends are. It's really based around my life without him. It's less so about what he's doing, and it's more so about what's going on at home. And then to start with, it's really strange because you feel like you're dominating the conversation, but over time you learn that that's how it has to be. There are certainly things that I didn't tell him. When he rang up, his first question is, "How are you?" And I would always say, "I'm fine," because I didn't want him to know when I'd had a bad day, or want him to know that something trivial to me had happened, but nevertheless had still been bad. The one thing I did make sure I let him know when I wasn't happy was when he didn't call before they went out on a job. So
I would try and call my wife pretty much every day, every second day, once the opportunity arose, but I never got the chance to call before my last mission.
I always thought that he was going to be fine, there was never going to be a problem. I started to get scared as the tour went on and things started happening, bad things started happening to either people around him or to, guys in the MTF. And I remember thinking to myself 2 days before the accident, what if he went to Germany? I don't have a passport. And then sort of fobbed it off and said, no, it's going to be okay, he'll be fine. I don't need to worry about that. I'll get a passport when he gets back. So on his next tour, I'm ready in case.
We boarded the Black Horse early morning to go for a quick mission. We it was about 5 minutes out from target, and we're lowering to prepare to land. And my Black Hawk lowered too soon, too fast, and hit the ground at about 350 kilometres an hour, and then tumbled. Many of the guys were thrown clear of the wreckage, with the exception of a few. From what I've been told from reports of the crash, I was found next to the wreckage, attempting to crawl away. Once I realised I was secured, I then lapsed into my coma, which would then last for 2.5 months. I have no recollection of the crash whatsoever.
I was leaving work and for some reason checked the news and saw a news headline that said serious incident in Afghanistan, Special Operations Task Group, mass casualties. And I knew that they were out on a job. I knew that if it wasn't Gary, it was someone very close to Gary. And the bit that scared the life out of me the most was the mass casualties. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if it meant that, all of them hadn't survived or some of them had, or I had no idea what it meant. And so I immediately started getting quite upset, but at the same time trying to calm myself because I hadn't heard anything. There was no one from the unit at my work. I hadn't heard anything on my phone. It wasn't until my phone started ringing with a private number I'd convinced myself at that point that, I definitely haven't heard anything now, 15, 20 minutes after seeing that news headline. It's definitely not him. This private number calling is him to tell me whatever I hear, don't worry about it. But it was his boss, and I didn't get his name. All I heard was, I'm such and such from 2 Commando and we're at your house. Yeah, it wasn't until we got to Germany that I was able to sort of get some sort of prognosis on his injuries, which from a registrar there, and she basically said to me he could stay the way he is on full life support, or he could make a full recovery, which means, back to normal, or he could fall somewhere in between that, and we've got no way of telling you.
I crushed every bone in my left foot, broke my knee, broke my pelvis, broke 2 ribs, broke my forearm, had to be reconstructed as well. Boxes fractured to my knuckles and my fingers. So 2 ribs, my nose, my jaw, my tooth, and then had bifrontal lobe bruising, plus a diffuse axonal injury, which is shaken baby syndrome.
In Germany, I could talk to him. He was just completely unresponsive. He would respond every now and then to pain, which was a good sign, but it was extreme pain. Like, those doctors and nurses were seriously hurting him for him to even make the slightest response. Gary's progression out of his coma was very slow. It was very gradual. One of the nurses in Germany said to me, this is going to be a marathon, not a race. And I didn't understand what that meant. I thought that waking up out of a coma is like in the movies, and you open your eyes and you start talking and you walk away and you can get to go home. But it was such a slow process that when people say to me, what was it like when he woke up? I say, well, I don't know when he woke up. It took that entire 2 or 3 months to actually, for him to sort of come out of the whole thing. And every sort of step he would make in the right direction was a great day, whether it was half a smile at a joke, which, you sort of realised he was comprehending what you said and he had the appropriate response for that. Whether it was squeezing your hand, whether it was, recognising himself in a photo. All of those little things was just, for me, it was a great day. And the next day, it'd give me motivation to get through the next day and see what he was going to do then.
My first word was ouch, because I tried to break out I thought I was captured and tied to a chair, undid the belt and tried to run, and then fell over and smashed my face into the ground. And then I'm like, ow, that hurt. So, quite a shock. Once the nurses put me back in bed, they told me a quick overview of what had occurred. I spent the whole night wide awake going, wow, this just happened.
I remember saying to the neurologist when he said to me, it's the same Gary coming back to you. Yes, he'll have limitations, but it's the same Gary. And I said, well, then you don't have to worry. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, he'll be fine. He won't accept not being able to walk, not being able to talk, not being able to run. He'll do it even when you tell him he can't.
Basically, the most powerful thing anyone can say to someone from the Special Forces is you can't. If they say we can't do something, we'll work harder to prove them wrong. and to keep going with our recovery, so to make sure we're back to 100% as soon as we can. Well, then they never thought that I was going to wake up and then to actually have the mobility that I have now. So I had to relearn how to walk. I'm still relearning how to talk properly. Relearn how to drive, basically do everything, basic normal human task, I had to relearn.
I found a part of me that I didn't know I had, in terms of not only being strong for Gary, but being strong for everyone else, all of our family, all of his friends. Really trying to step up, because I knew that if they saw me upset, then they would be upset and they would lose hope. And it's, hope was the only thing that we had in those early days and weeks, and even months with him. So I found that, that strength from nowhere.
I don't actually remember Renee coming. I know that she's always there and would always be there for me.